Welcome everyone. Let me introduce Mr. McGough. He is the director of the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program at Weatherford College. Mr. McGough has a master's in occupational therapy from Texas Women's University and master's in business administration from the University of Central Arkansas. He has over 25 years of experience in clinical occupational therapy. His treatment specialties have included neurology, orthopedics, and spinal cord injury. In addition to that, how many of you are his students? He has a great sense of humor, and he's a great golfer.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad that you're here. I was scheduled to talk about occupational therapy domain and process, the framework. And let me give you a little bit of a background because I tend to go off script, as some of my students will tell you, and talk about what I really want to convey today, which is what is occupational therapy. And for those of you that don't know, which there will be a lot of you, because a lot of people think it's how to find a job because it has well, that's not what it is, okay? From the very beginning, it's been difficult, like I said, to convey what OT really is. So our American Occupational Therapy Association decided that we needed to quantify this and put it in some sort of framework, which they did, which will explain what we do as professionals to people that may not be in the profession. What is it that OTs do? And so they came up with this that sits behind me, except for, well, this is the domain. I'm leaving off the process until a later date. Today I just want to get through the domain of where OT is, what OT does, how they go about it, and how they relate to their patients, okay? I think that what you have to understand and really appreciate is the fact that OTs, above all, are professionals that look at the entire person. They don't look at just one little piece of, okay, this person has an arm that doesn't work, or that they've got an emotional problem or a mental problem in this area, or they can't do. They look at the entire holistic gestalt, the whole thing, okay? A human being is an entire entity, and that's the way we view it. And that's been our calling card also. And sometimes we run into other disciplines that we butt heads with a little bit, but that's for another story. I think that one of the things that will help you understand what we do as OTs, we look at function, but more than anything else, we look at useful, purposeful function. We want to make a patient be able to do the things that they want to do, or the things that they have to do every day. You do them, I do them, day-to-day activities, and we'll talk about those occupations in a minute. But everything that you do all day long, we want you to be as functional and useful and feel a sense of worth about doing those things and doing them successfully as you can. Now, I know that paints it with a broad brush, and I'm no apologies to it. It's just what it is. Again, we look at the entire person. So AOTA, the American Occupational Therapy Association, decided, okay, we've got to put this in print, and this is what they came up with. If you look on the far left, you'll see those occupations I was talking about, okay? Take a minute to look at those. That covers just about the entire human experience right there, okay? The things that you do every day, the things that I do every day, get dressed, get showered, toileting, bathing, dressing. There's basic self-care. There's advanced or instrumental self-care. We call them ADLs. That's activities of daily living. It's just another acronym for doing the things that you do as far as self-care. And then you go down the laundry list there with the play and what else do we have up there? Education, work, play, leisure, social participation. Somewhere most of our human activities are going to fall into those areas of occupation. Okay? What happens when we have a disease process that interrupts those things? I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But you're not able to do these things as well or at all, okay? Used to, you could get up and go to the bathroom, pardon OT is a very frank and upfront personal profession, so if I say something, it's going to be the way it is. But you have to do all the things that you do for toileting. It takes you a little what, you get out of there and you're gone. You have a spinal cord injury, it isn't the same process, okay? It's more of an endeavor. It's more of a problem. So you have to figure out ways to still do what you have to do, no pun intended. And you have to be able to complete your tasks successfully. And most of the time, hi, come on in. Most of the time it's going to be either with extra time or with an adaptive piece of equipment or with a different technique or something to allow you to be successful in doing these things, okay? Are you with me so far? Okay? I know so far that seems, well, you haven't told me anything that's really profound. No, I haven't, but this is the area where we live and breathe as OTs. Okay? On the next section of this domain, you have the client factors. Values, beliefs, spirituality, body functions, body structures. Okay? Can anybody give me an idea, especially the OTs in the bunch, can anybody give me an idea of what that might be? I'm going to step over here so I can cheat on this. Anybody?
Body structures are the way the body's put together, so it could be maybe there's humerus here and maybe you have a fracture.
Okay. Yes?
I'm guessing the values and beliefs, if your religion might get in the way of having certain help with.
Yes, that's absolutely true. It can, or it can enhance the process.
Yeah.
Okay? Everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody comes from different areas of all things, okay? Different body function structures. We have different values and beliefs and spirituality, and that's okay. That's what the diversity makes us great. But why is it important to me as a practicing OT doing my thing to take into account for these things? Anybody? Why would that be important? Give me a scenario. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a scenario. Let's do it this way. If I go in to treat somebody and all I see is that they are a stroke patient, and I don't see the fact that this is a man who is head of his family, who has a specific religious process that he has to go through every day that I have to take into account for if he's the main breadwinner and is getting back to his job is the main thing. If all I'm seeing is just that little hand that won't work, then I'm not taking into account everything about that person. I'm missing something that will enhance the process of getting to where we want to go. So I've been in situations where I talk to families, and sometimes it's the patient, sometimes it's the wife, sometimes it's even the grown son over here that's listening. Somebody's calling the shots, and it may not be just the patient, okay? Knowing that helps me to convey what I'm trying to convey, okay? Knowing different aspects of a person's experience and who they are and what they are is harder to see sometimes than just the fact that I see that this person can't move their arm. I can see that they don't have the strength. I can see their balance is off. Those are all body functions, body processes. That's pretty easily seen. It's pretty evident from the get-go. What you don't always pick up, and you have to learn to pick up as a good therapist, is these other things that we're talking about, specifically the client factors. Performance skills, sensory perceptual skills, motor and praxis skills, emotional regulation, cognitive, communication, and social skills. What I would say to that is everybody has, some people have good coordination. I can hit a golf ball fairly well before I got old and fat. Now I can still kind of go at it, but when I was young, I could hit the golf ball. That's not an easy task, okay? But it is nothing compared to trying to teach a stroke patient that has been affected to try to reach across that table and pick up something, even a little block, and put it over here to try to lead them up to be able to brush their teeth or comb their hair. That is fine and gross motor skills at its very bare essence of what it is, okay? And sometimes that is the most emotional thing, because people are seeing that they're not the same as they were before the stroke, or before the spinal cord injury, or before whatever. And they are trying like the devil to be able to do that. And whereas you and I just reach over and pick up the computer and start typing, they have to think about it. I've got to reach over, I've got to do this, I've got to pick it up, I've got to squeeze. I mean, it is a mind-numbing experience for some people, but sometimes that's the process. My point being that motor skills, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, visual perception, cognition, all of these things that bring to the table here under these performance skills, all of those things have to be accounted for, okay? And that's not always easy. And the bottom line is, for example, with a stroke, a person may not have the vision that they had. One side of their vision, it may be affected. Their left arm may be flaccid, which means they can't move, there's no muscle tone. They may have balance that makes them unable to come out of this chair without falling on their noggin over here on this side. They may have inability to swallow because of their windpipe was not covered by their epiglottis when they do the swallow. So if they get fluid or food down in their windpipe, they can aspirate and get pneumonia. So they have to go through the process of thickening their food, thickening their liquids so they don't have to, so they won't aspirate. It can affect, you know, the ability to do so many things, the cognition. We think about, okay, we don't have to think about, okay, I've got something at 4 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock, and then I got to go pick up the kids at 10 o'clock, and then blah, blah, blah. They can't move that quick sometimes. It's affected their cognition, their sequencing, those sorts of things. And when you break it all down, you can be affected by a lot of these things up here. Sometimes, hopefully not many, but sometimes a lot. And as a therapist, that offers a challenge because it's hard to teach somebody that doesn't have the emotional capability or the cognitive ability or the physical ability to do what you're asking them to do. It's almost like asking them to do the impossible. But slowly but surely with technique and the equipment and so forth, we try to get from point A to point B. Does that make sense? Okay? Moving down the line here, habits, routines, roles, and rituals. Why do you think that performance patterns, why those patterns of performance, why is that important to us, would you guess? Not knowing anything about it, what would you guess? Why would routine be important to you? As a functioning human being doing those things out on your far left over here. Doing all of those things. Well, let me give you some feedback, since I'm the one up here squawking so much. If you think about, I don't know, toothpaste. If you put toothpaste on a toothbrush, if you say, okay, I'm going to squeeze this, I'm going to put it there, I'm going to roll out that toothpaste, and then I'm going to lift it up, and then I'm going to go up and down in my front, and then I'm going to go back. You'd be there all day, right? You get into a routine. I put my keys over here so I know where they are when I leave. I brush quick, I do this. It's automatic. These rituals, these routines, these roles that it's to speed the process of doing those things on the far left. Because without them, we'd be there days trying to do one or two things. Does that make sense? Okay? And we can drill deep into the roles and what those are and the routines and analyze them, and you're still going to come out with the same thing. It's to facilitate the process. It's to make it quicker, not just quicker, but better. Okay? I lose things, so if I don't do a routine, then I get lost along the life's highway there real quick. I can tell you that for a fact. Over here is the context of the environment. This is related a little bit to some of those in the beginning, but cultural, personal, physical, social, temporal, and virtual. You guys in here, most of you are young. The virtual is going to be a lot more important to you. The life we live, the social media, the way we do things, the way we communicate, the way we perceive ourselves is almost a cyber personality as much as anything else. It's a new dawn for you guys. I'm glad that you not me, because I'm terrible at it. Okay? Temporal, more or less for the time aspects of it, when and where, social, physical and personal. I think you get the thing. The cultural is a big thing. Why do you think the cultural is a big thing with OTs trying to teach technique and skill? Yes?
There's so many different cultures that you don't necessarily offend somebody.
Absolutely. Good answer. Not only not to offend them, but also to make it easier to speak the way you want to convey. Let me backtrack. Speak and address the way you want it to be received, okay? Because some people with different cultures have different views of time, of roles of people, of women, of men, of how they fit into the family structure, how they view their kids, how they view the way you interact, all of those things from a different culture. And we can go on and on. Sociologists spend a lifetime studying those things, and anthropologists do. But the fact of the matter is, if you go into a treatment area as an OT and you're blinded to the fact that this person is different in culture than that person, you're going to get stung on it at some point, okay? And not only that, you're not going to make as much progress, okay? I think that these activity demands speak for themselves. How much space, the demands, the sequencing, the timing, how much actions are required, body functions, body structures, all of these things relate to what the human being is asked to do in the environment they're asked to do it and where they come from as far as strength, abilities, coordination, emotion, focus, cognition, you name it, okay? So you've got all of these things that human beings have or unfortunately don't have to try to do those things on that far left of those occupations. And you want to do it safely and you want to do it effectively. And then sometimes that's a tall order, okay? Is everybody with me so far? Does that make sense? I know this is, on the surface area, and if I was teaching this, I would go, as a class, I would go deeper into each of these areas, but these 6 areas up here is the domain of occupational therapy. The other part of that is the process, which is the evaluation, treatment, and re-evaluation. But I think if you get this today, this is what I wanted to focus on, okay? Okay? I want to shift gears a little bit. Instead of doing just talk and lecturing, I want to do something where I actually show you something, okay? Let's pretend for a minute, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute, that a person's had a stroke. Can anybody tell, let's say they've had a medium to a severe stroke. What do you think is affected by that stroke? I talked about it a minute ago, but the main things.
Brain?
Okay, it's affected in the brain. It's a stroke is really, and this is just drive-by explanation, but you have a blood vessel in the brain that has either is burst or has a leak or there's been an insult to the brain somehow where that part of the brain which controls other parts of the body has been compromised, okay, for different reasons. But the bottom line is you may not be able to move, let's say, your arm, okay? You can do everything else, but you can't move that arm, okay? Still got some good cognition. You know where you are. You know how to, you know who you are. You're able to follow directions, but you can't move this arm, and it just lays there, okay? So if that's the case, and let's say my leg is a little affected by that stroke, which often is the case, and often there's a lot more, but let's just focus on this. The leg is weak, my balance is bad on that left side, and I can't move my arm. Now, how am I going to do dressing? That first one on the list, the top of the list. How am I going to get a shirt on? You say, well, you just put it on. Well, I can't move this. So I'm kind of stuck, right? So, Mr. OT, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm either going to try to get this arm doing better, just do some exercises, some therapy to try to make it start moving. And I'm also going to show you some adaptive technique, and I'm also going to use some adaptive equipment if I have to. Because it may not get better, unfortunately. Hopefully it will, but it may not. Some spontaneous, healing can occur and you get almost full function. Other times, you're going to go to the grave with this not being able to move, okay? So you still got to get those things done. So could I have a volunteer from the audience? You in the black shirt. Did you bring your props? Would you bring your shirt out and your pants out first? Not more than the edge here. By the way, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Stephanie Sellers. She wasn't just a spontaneous volunteer out of the audience. I think y'all knew that. Okay. Let's go with the shirt first. Okay. I'm more on your desk, I'm sorry. Okay, so first of all, we had poor left upper extremity. Can't move it, can't do anything with it. Poor left lower extremity function. And she's probably going, we're not going to really accentuate this, but she would more than likely be leaning to the left because of her balance. And I'll tell you something else, more than likely she's got some visual problems to the left. But for right now, we're just going to talk about arm. So, how am I going to tell this lady to take this? And I'm going to let her just demonstrate one-handed technique, and I'm going to walk you through it, don't worry. Okay, first of all, you lay face down in your lap. This is what I'm going to tell a patient. Actually, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to show it, demonstrate it to them, then I'm going to ask them to do this. So you make a hole where you can see that left sleeve on the back of your leg. So and that's another thing, you got to take your time because this person may require time to finish what they are trying to do. You can't be in a hurry with this process, as simple as it looks. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now she can see where, now, can she just put her hand in there? No. She has to reach over with this hand, pick up her wrist. Don't, you cheated.
Get it out.
All right, now pick it up and put it in that, and then thread it up over that arm with your right hand. And you pull it up through there, still haven't let it go flaccid. She doesn't obey orders very well. Okay, then go back in with your right hand. You got to make sure this is up over the elbow, or it'll slip down. You're an OT, you should know that.
It's training. Having you provide more instruction.
Okay, now you take this V of your thumb and your first finger in the neck. Like this. Turn this. Okay, you just cheat. Go on. She still hasn't moved her left hand. And then she pulls it down with her hand and kind of moves it from side to side with only her right hand, and she's dressed. Okay? One of my students is in here. She's seen this before, until she goes, oh God, I don't want to watch him do that again. Okay? Now, let's pretend she can't reach down to get to, let's say she had a hip replacement, okay? And she can't bend over to get it, or she's got where she gets short of breath, or she's obese, or she's got whatever, blood pressure problems. How is she going to get her pants over her leg? Well, handy dandy reacher here. This is one of the greatest inventions since sliced bread. All right? You're a hip patient now. You got full function. All right? So she can't bend over. How do you get it over your leg?
I'm going to drop my pants.
You didn't know there was going to be a floor show here today. And then you go like that, and you just work it up. Okay? Now you can put the other one in and just pull it up with your hand. Okay? Does everybody see what I'm trying to prove? Now you can do the other one. You still haven't bent forward, and yet you've got your pants on. And there you go. Oh, sit down, sit down, sit down. If you're the therapist, I'm just being instinctive. If you're the therapist, you don't want a hip patient to stand up by themselves. Come on, slow. That's all right. Now pull your pants up. There you go. I can get you something smaller in the back. All right, have a seat. Okay, one last show and tell, and I'll quit boring you guys with this. She's got to put her socks on, okay? How's she going to put her socks on if she can't bend over? Somebody take a guess. Oh, we'll just do one side. You don't have to fold it. How's she gonna get that sock on? Yes,
You're probably gonna have to use a device, right?
I don't know. Would you?
Because she can't bend down, so is there,
She can't bend down and she can't bring her foot up to it to put socks on. She can't bend over like we normally do, sitting on the edge of the bed or however. You skinny girls that can pull your leg way up here, I can't do that because I'm too fat, but you know what I'm trying to say. You can, different ways, but you still got to get that thing up to where you get the sock over your toes, right? But she can't do that. So what are we going to do?
use the cloth,
Huh?
the little cloth thing.
Claw thing?
That's just gonna really.
Damn. That's, you're sort of right. All right, put that over. Watch how she does this. You put the sock over the end of that thing with the toe facing out, of course, and the heel in the back, and you thread it down over that. Takes a while, but some people get really quick with that. You got handles on each side, so you drop that thing down. Both hands. Put your foot in, point your toe and pull it. I'll leave. Pull. There you go. Everybody see how it's supposed to work? If we hadn't had a major malfunction, as they say. Okay?
I don't think they'd be very happy in that morning.
No, they wouldn't. You can get out of here now. My point being, these little demos is that you're going to either find a technique, like we did with the one-handed dressing. Thank you. You're going to find a piece of adaptive equipment, like that sock aid. But some way we got to meet those areas of occupation to be able to do them, despite these deficiencies. And in the context of these cultures and who they are as a people, as a person, as people. So I'm running for office. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to bumbling through and say? Okay? Any questions so far? What do y'all think this is? It's a mirror. What do you think? Okay? If I'm a spinal cord patient, this is just one example, and I can't grip because I've only got weak hand because of the level of the spinal cord, quadriplegia, or now they call it what? Tetraplegia, right? So you go in here, that's a universal cup, or what amounts to a universal cup. Put that there. One of the things you have to be real careful with the spinal cord is they don't want to get skin breakdown and have decubits on their tailbone, because that's where the bony prominence is. And how do you look at that? You can't see it, so you do like this. Everybody's going, what's it doing? Okay, so you can look and make sure if you see a red spot, then you know that it needs to be taken care of. I'll tell you something else that's really graphic, but that's the way it is. We're in OT world. To wipe somebody's butt and you can't reach there, you have to have an extension. You have to find a way. You don't do it with a mirror, I promise, but when you do it with a little back, what's it called? Something buddy, I can't remember. Anyway, toilet paper on one end with a little plastic trigger, and then you wipe and drop it into the toilet. There is a way around everything in OT work. They have invented some of the most unbelievable things. Button hooks, reachers, you name it, to get things done. But back to where I was, how am I doing on time? Where are we at?
Go about 30 minutes.
Okay. 10 minutes. I'm running out of material here, okay? But the ultimate process and the ultimate goal is to reach those things safely and in a reasonable amount of time, which may not seem reasonable to you, but in a reasonable amount of time considering the deficits, okay? I'm sort of selling OT, but I'm also describing what the framework, the domain part of the framework is, okay? Anybody, questions so far? I know you've seen a lot of gadgets and everything. Anything else? Anything? Yes?
It's funny that you brought up the arm thing. When I was born, nerves broke my arm,
Mhm.
and so I don't have as much function of it, and so, and my wrist doesn't turn.
Mhm.
But I have a question on what exercises might actually work for, to strengthen that arm. Because I go to the gym and stuff, and it's just kind of hard to make it.
And I'm not sidestepping your question, but the fact of the matter is, it depends. And a good physician who tells you what the exercise is, and then in collaboration with the OT or the PT. PT, by the way, hang on to that thought, don't let me leave it. PT and OT, a lot of people don't know the difference between physical therapy and occupational therapy, okay? Occupational therapists are smarter and better looking, but other than that, they also are the ones, and this is kind of going out on a limb, they're more concerned with ambulation, walking, transferring, getting from point A to point B. They're a little bit more into modalities to, am I saying that? Do you think I'm making them mad back there, Stephanie, or how would you say, as far as PT? Is that?
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're focused more on the ability to walk, like you said, balance, to be able to, walk down the street, go into the grocery store. They're interested in transfers, how you can go from sitting to standing. Bed mobility, can you get in and out of the bed independently by yourself? Also focus a lot on strength training of the lower extremities, the legs, because you've got to have strength to be able to walk. And they're also interested in how you can get in and out of the car as well. So I think
she and I are saying, they're more interested in you being able to get from point A to point B safely and with the strength that you need. And they also do some other things too that I don't want to take away from their practice, like wound care and a couple other things that are kind of something that PT. But back to your question. Sometimes with a nerve injury, not yours, but any nerve injury, sometimes you don't have the muscle strength because they're not firing, all the muscles aren't firing. And to have to try to get them to do that, sometimes you need to make sure that the muscles are innervated, that you're trying to improve. Otherwise you can do more harm than good. Okay, that's why it's important that a good orthopedic person, doctor, physician, be able to tell you what would be a good treatment plan. And then we follow that treatment plan. We have ideas, but they have to be on board with it. It's a little bit more specific what you're describing.
Okay.
Okay? But back to the things that you were talking about, grip. Sometimes we will have little devices that allow you to open up, if a patient has an arthritic hand, little people, I don't mean little people, I mean older people that have real bad arthritis. You've seen it. You've seen them when they have the little ulnar drift and some of the knuckles that are like this. They can't open those jars. OT swoops in real quick on those folks and tries to say, okay, here's a can opener that you can use using your whole hand or your arms instead of your little joints in your fingers. Here's the way to get this box open this way or that way. There's catalogs and people making lots of money selling devices and adaptive equipment to do those things. And we as OTs, sometimes the good stuff, we recommend it for our patients, okay? But there is tons of things out there to increase independence with some of those occupations up there that we were talking about. Any other questions? Anything? Any questions about the profession or anything? Yes?
What made you decide to go towards OT versus maybe PT for someone that's in between?
Well, if I was going to lie to you and say that I had a calling to go to OT, but you didn't have to have physics to get into OT. and back then, my wife, who wasn't my wife then, was an OT. And so I was selling securities. Not to get too personal, but I was selling stocks and bonds and making $88 commission every month and thought, something's got to give. I can't even make a house payment. So, And as I got into it, I was glad I did, because it, like I said in the beginning, not to knock PT, because they're really, most of them are nice people, not all of them, but most of them. But OTs really, really look at the holistic person. That's why it's this framework, this domain is so across the board of the human experience. They look at everything: culture, environment, balance, who you are, what are your, we always say if it's not something that has meaning to the patient, then we don't really want to mess with it. It has to hold meaning. So that's what made OT attractive to me, more after I got into it, I'll be honest, than when I first started. Okay? I just wanted to marry the girl that I was dating, and she was in OT school, so I said, I want to go to OT school. I did. It worked out. She hasn't killed me yet. Anybody else? Any other questions? Well, that may be my cue right there. And by the way, that brings me to, I'm just drifting here, as usual. But those, you guys, you younger guys and girls who are living in this day and age and approaching your career, and you're moving, whether it's nursing or OT, PT, whatever, you know, whatever you're doing. That, where is it? This virtual world up here that you're living in, we can do a whole lot. Just that little alarm, having a camera, an alarm, access to anything can enhance a treatment process more than you can know. How many reps you do this and that. I mean, on out to talking with someone about this experience. Groups, you know, resources and things like that. People that have been through some of these things, and knowing people, building rapport with those associations, other people, help groups, whatever it is. The world's a lot smaller because of that little thing that just went off, okay? It is just a smaller world. And in a lot of ways for OT, especially in their patients, it's better. Now, sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. But it opens up a whole, I'll close with this and then I'll shut up. But do y'all know what the, what is it, the virtual reality thing that, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
What is that called?
VR, so.
Huh?
The VR headsets, the
Yeah, but there's a
HTC Vive,
That makes-
Oculus Rift.
I stepped off into that the other day for the first time, and granted, I'm an old, excuse me, on camera, I'm an old person. And, scratch that, whoever's doing the editing there. But you go in there, and y'all are going, yeah, Mike, we know, we've done it, you know. But for me, it was the first time. You're picking up blocks, you're hitting a ping pong, you're doing, I mean, you can shoot skeet, you can do anything. Can you imagine what that does for a potential to treat patients? I mean, it's just, you're on the cutting edge of a lot of stuff in healthcare, that's for sure. It's just amazing, it really is. And you don't have to worry about the weather either, you can just do it in the living room. And of course, when I got out of the thing and I was watching my son, he looked like, you know, it kind of looked more like an idiot on the outside than you did on the inside, you know. But I thought it was really remarkable, the potential for healthcare, especially in my area. So, any other questions before I shut it down? Yes?
You want to mention the other areas that we work in, such as mental health and pediatrics?
Yes, thank you. The good thing about OT, and I know I sound like I'm public service for OT, and I'm not trying to recruit anybody, but we work in areas of mental health. Because we are a broad, holistic profession, we work in areas of mental health, all kinds of mental health diagnoses. We also work in pediatrics with kids who have learning disabilities, sensory integration problems, hyperactivity, you name it. It runs the full autism. There is a lot of OTs that go into that, vision, you know, just specifically focused on that. We have specialists in hand therapy where they do nothing but upper extremity. They go into every ounce of studying the minutia of the hand that you can think of, do splinting and modalities, and, you know, if a person ruptures tendons, how is that supposed to be? If you're real analytical, you still want to be an OT, that might be an area to consider, you know, because you have to line up the pulley just right. I'm not that person, okay? I'd rather just put the sock egg on and go, you know, but some people want a little bit more out of the minutia of it, and that's good, because that's what it takes with that. But like she said, there's several different ways you can explore if you think OT is something you might be interested in. Again, I'm not trying to take you out of your professions, I'm just saying that's there. Anything else? Nothing? Okay. I guess we can draw for door prizes if we have to. No. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Y'all been a good audience.
Thank you.